Getting our nose right in there and having a good sniff around. The Monday Scrum.
Monday Scrum Grand Final preview edition, if you want to call it that. Adam Peacock alongside Brent Read. He's a busy man, Reedy.
Hello, mate. What's doing?
You haven't stopped typing on some kind of device since I got here about 5 minutes ago.
It's Grand Final week, man. Lots going on.
Good.
Madge and the Broncos.
Lining
it's
up
all
your appearances this week. All sorted. 360, Triple M.
Couple here and there.
Telegraph.
Got to pay a mortgage.
Hey, not having
Not
a
as
digger
many
down.
as this bloke.
James Graham.
Oh, mate.
It's a drive-by.
Jeez.
What do you mean?
Mate, we're doing a special show tomorrow.
You'd be
With
doing
that sort of attitude.
Well, I reckon you'd be doing some ambassador things on Grand Final Day as well. Surely you got some lined up.
I'm working for Triple M Grand Final Day. I'll pop over to the Bulldogs.
Of course you will. Of course you will. Of course you will.
Pub across the road. They've got a bit of a function on. Say hello there.
Okay. Yeah.
And then
You won't work the rooms upstairs or anything?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
No. Well, not.
You're missing out there, Jimmy. Some cash to be made.
I don't know. I've not got an invite for that. But yeah, we're doing a special podcast tomorrow. aren't
Yeah, I'm
we?
looking forward to that.
Yeah, the round table. Previous guest Jason Demetriou as well.
JD's here, by the way, everyone. Hello, JD.
Hey, boys, how are we?
We'll talk some footy in a second once they get this out of their system.
Round table was good fun, the round table last year.
It is a good
was
show,
good. I
isn't
enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
And I'm just looking at Reedy's left his call log open. Jeez, it's like the who's who of rugby league.
It is it.
Like
Yeah.
top chairman, player agents.
Player agents.
Me.
No player agents here. There is a very good chairman, though.
Who's
That's about
Whispers?
it. This what?
Whispers, who's that?
Source 1, Source 2.
Gentlemen, as we know, the two best sides. I went back, JD, to the game. Before the weekend, I went back to the game that these Melbourne and Penrith played at Penrith a few weeks ago, and I went, that sticks in the mind as something that was in fast forward in relation to what the rest of the competition did. Was that what got these two sides in this situation into the grand final? The pace that they played, the execution to get themselves through those grand final qualifiers?
Yeah, I think Melbourne in particular, the pace they played at, the speed they played at, their running threat from their halves, it was just too much for the Roosters. In saying that, they had some dodgy calls go against them when they were 24-18 down and on the comeback, so that didn't help, but they blew them away in the end, just too fast, too fit. And on the flip side of that, it was just Penrith-esque, wasn't it, that performance? You just knew it was only a matter of time. The Sharks were defiant and they were hanging in there, but they never threatened the scoreboard. They didn't put any scoreboard pressure on the Panthers, and they were able just to stay in their rhythm. And even when they had a dodgy call against them, which we'll probably talk about later, but they still just stay in their rhythm. When they got one, they got two, they got three, and they finish the game off. So I'm really intrigued by this game. I've said it all along, to beat Penrith in a final, you've got to score 4 tries. And the last time Melbourne played them, that's exactly what they scored, 4 tries, 24-22. And Melbourne are the team who can score those points. The challenge for Penrith is, can they control the ruck of Melbourne?
What was the biggest memory you have of the weekend about how those two sides went about it, James Graham?
Yeah, for me, Melbourne, super impressive starting the game, down to 12 players. Roosters got the jump and would have been excited, and Melbourne faced that adversity and managed to overcome it. And the way they finished that game with Munster just demanding the football, that's a team that's excited to play, excited to kill off these other teams. Their playoff form has been sensational. The Melbourne Storm, the Panthers, they've just been quietly going about their business. They looked comfortable on Saturday evening. The wet conditions didn't played their part to an extent, but going back to that, I think it was around 24 game. Melbourne got the victory, but I thought generally I was there. I thought Penrith were the better of the two teams, and that's why I'm leaning towards them in this weekend's decider.
Fair enough. Now, Reedy, grand final week is all about narratives and backstories and everything, but in a news sense, what are the two big ones for either side? Is it Jerome Hughes and his neck and his injury worry?
Nelson's the big one
and Nelson?
today until tonight gets sort of resolved in his fight at the judiciary. And obviously that'll resonate tomorrow because there'll be the fallout from that.
Is there any hope?
You know what? I actually give him an outside chance. I know he's got to get double downgrade, but I watched that and I look at he got charged earlier this year over an incident where he cleaned up Cameron Munster as well, and I'm pretty sure that was a grade 1. And I actually think this one's not as bad as that one, because that one there was a bit of swinging arm in it. This one I don't think is any swing. I think he's a hope.
But isn't it all about the mitigative? And you've talked about this, JD, a lot, about setting yourself and having a choice as the attacker approaches. And it looked like he had a fair few choices up his sleeve, and he chose the one to go high, and it went wrong.
Yeah, and again, Collins dips his level a little bit, and that's all it takes. If you don't dip your level and he dips his a little bit, they're both big men, fortunately, but it's hard off the kickoff because multiple people are coming into the collision at the same time. So that's where there is some mitigating factors. So that'll be interesting because I've heard the Storm want to fight the fact that he was actually impeded by one of his players that affected him getting into that tackle. But ultimately, the fact Lindsay Collins was ruled out with a grade 1, that's going to be the biggest problem. The fact that he couldn't come back on the field, they had a massive advantage because of it.
And he played the ball the wrong way.
Yeah,
it's not a good look.
It's not a good look.
Unfortunately.
You know, I'd love to see Nelson play in the grand final, but based on way the decisions have gone this year and the things that have gone through the judiciary, I can't see him getting off. But
the grade 3, don't you think a grade 3 was a bit over the top?
I do, yeah, I do massively. But I think that's why, because if he wasn't knocked out and even just had a minor incident, had come back on the field, would it have been a grade 3?
No.
I don't think so.
No,
And that's the difference now.
Look, nobody wants to see Nelson miss the grand final. Like, it's a horrible time to get a suspension. But that said, like, yes, there's an element of mitigation, but the optics of, Collins standing up playing the ball the wrong way are arguably just as bad as Reece Walsh KO'd in the middle of Accor Stadium. Suolihi when he KO'd Blake Taff again at Accor Stadium. Like, those optics aren't great, and I think with the way
don't you think this is a different tackle, Jimmy? Like, of
course, it's a different tackle. But you
like
could argue
the one that Suolihi did on Reece in Origin.
Yep.
Like, he was off his feet. He was almost horizontal, right, when he hit him.
Yeah.
This one's a bloke. He just happens to be 6'6", right?
The counter argument to that is those type of tackles that we're referring to, like Suolihi and Dominic Young, who was sent off for the Roosters. Those up and in style tackles happen at such a quick decision. Like, there's speed, there's movement, there's change of angle, change of pace. You don't get time to set yourself. Nelson's got 40 metres to adjust his body position. And look, I know it was accidental, but that's what they'd argue. And I think with where the league are at with concussion, future litigation, they almost can't afford not to punish that action with games, I feel. And look, I do not want to see Nelson miss the grand final, but I think the league are in a predicament where they just can't afford to let that one go. And even the fact that I think that the reason why it was a grade 3 is because he stayed on the field. He played like the full 80 minutes after committing the offence.
No, he got sin bin. He missed 10.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, missed 10.
The interesting thing is you've got a panel of 2 former players who are going to have their heartstrings tugged by this bloke who's potentially missing a grand final, and whether that plays a role in or helps him in
So I think that's all rubbish. Whether it's a grand final or it's Origin or it's like at the end of the day,
JD.
the integrity of the sport is the most important thing, and you can't have integrity if you're going to pick and choose when you're going to enforce the rules of the game. He hits him high. It's not intentional, but it happens, and the league's been saying all year you have to take control of where you hit to make contact. And Nelson doesn't. He gets it wrong. And don't get me wrong, I would rather it have been a grade 2 and him a chance of fighting and getting a downgrade. And I'm not going to complain if he gets off. I understand that, but the fact Lindsay Collins, if there was Roosters win, Lindsay Collins isn't playing next week. He's out of the game.
He's gone.
So he can't play for 11 days, and over the next few years that might become 2 weeks before where you got to stand down before you come back and play. So someone bumps you in the head, there's got to be consequences for them bumping you in the head. So unless they can show that there's contact on him, which forces him upright, then
that's why you need to bring him idea of having a 2-week break between the prelim and the grand final,
it
like
could
the
be,
Super Bowl.
It could be. It's going to take.
I've actually been thinking about that over the weekend, and I'm leaning. I'm coming around a little bit.
Ooh,
a little bit.
Hold on.
Well, it's going to take a superstar.
That's ridiculous. But then actually,
you bagged it on Saturday.
I did bag it.
You've come around though.
But it will take a superstar to be ruled out with that rule, a concussion. Say Nathan, like it happened to a Nathan Cleary. week before a grand final, sorry, Nathan, you've got a headache, you can't play. They're the rules.
100%.
Too bad. I
I
think
just think it's
happen.
an area where the game can't step back from. I don't think the game can go, okay, yeah, we understand this. Like if it was a shoulder charge, it went wrong, and you could understand that. But the fact that it's a head contact and the guy has got up, played the ball wrong way, and has been ruled out of the game straight away, I think that the game needs to be strong on that. And someone missing a grand final is a strong message to the playing group.
At Penrith, are they on Rocky Bowl to watch for Nathan, or is it Ivan in trouble with the NRL, or has that been kind of washed away?
That's all sweet. That's all gone by
What's
the
the narrative
wayside.
out at Penrith?
Oh, I think
The emotion of it all,
immortality,
for these guys
I
going?
think, is probably part of it. I mean, obviously, Luai and James Fisher-Harris leaving, their big story. They'll be big stories this week. Nathan playing with a busted shoulder. I mean, that's a huge story as well, given the way he played in the prelim. And, you know, I think the fact that they could win 4 comps in a row, that's a big enough story on its own, really. I mean, that's unheard of in the modern era. Well, 3 in a row is just about unheard of as well. So I think, there's plenty of stories out of there.
With Fisher-Harris and Luai, and if this has happened, so Penrith are used to it, but a little bit different with James Fisher-Harris because it's kind of not planned. It's the one that they haven't planned for, Penrith, and he's such a loved character in that dressing room. He's like the leader who doesn't need to talk almost.
Yeah.
With someone like that and and those guys playing for him and wanting to do good, can you get too emotional in a big game, James?
Yeah, you probably can let the emotions take over, but I think, Penrith have been there before. It's not their first time to be losing one of their brothers. We know the relationship between Luai Toto and Crichton, amongst others. He left. Api Coruscant, Kickow is another one that they were very fond of and tight with. So this is nothing new for the Penrith Panthers. How they go about replacing those two, and maybe the fact that this isn't as planned as what those usual exits are. Maybe the rest of the playing group are looking around, going, "Hey, maybe this is the last time we get to do this for 2 or 3 years."
Yeah. What about the actual process of winning, JD and James, and Brent Bellamy over here can chime in with his thoughts on his beloved Melbourne Storm. Sorry, I had to chime that in. With what does Craig Bellamy want his side to do right, bang on, to nullify Penrith, and vice versa? And it's hard to pick negatives about these two sides because they've been so good all year.
If you go back and look over the last few years at Penrith game v Melbourne, there's been a noticeable difference in metres gained and metres conceded, and a huge amount of that has been gone in the favour of Penrith, and they've beaten Melbourne consecutive times. This year, the last 2 games, Melbourne have matched them in the yardage game, and what that does, it gives them an opportunity to get their attack on and go after points inside the cage, and that's going to be massively important again. If you concede metres against Penrith, and Cleary, just like exactly what happened on the weekend, they'll stay at that over and over and over and over again until eventually you crack, and nearly every team in the competition cracks. But this Melbourne side's different. They got a bit of swagger about themselves at the moment. Their yardage defence is a lot more aggressive than it has been over the last couple of years. Really concerned about whether Meaney plays or not. You could see.
Why is that?
Well, he went off with a knee injury, didn't he?
No, yeah, but why is he so important? For a player like him doesn't jump at me as someone say, "Oh, if he's out, that really."
Well, it's about combinations and understanding, and that's why I said before the game on the weekend with the Sharks that right edge was going to get peppered, and it did. It conceded 3 tries, should have conceded 4 tries because someone's come in who hasn't played with them all year, hasn't got that understanding, that communication slightly, and you're playing in the biggest stage, in the biggest moments. Meaney, if he drops out, who comes in? It's probably Anderson who comes in, but it's hard to see who fills it. And it's just that, and in a grand final, it's that little bit of detail that might be 2% off that makes a difference between stopping a try or conceding a try. And losing an edge player it's tough to do. It's almost as up there in terms of defence. It's worse than losing a halfback, I reckon.
Oh wow!
Because the decisions they make and how they communicate with their inside is so vital.
Interesting what you say about the yardage game as well, JD. If Nelson is to be ruled out, just his physical presence and his contribution to those yardage sets is absolutely massive. So yeah, all eyes will be on the judiciary.
And it happened again on the weekend, either side of half time, when Leota and Fisher-Harris went on the field. Cronulla started getting a bit more of a stronghold in the game. That's when they got their points. And when Leota and Fisher-Harris came back on, they blow the game open. And that's what I love about Penrith. You go back to last year's grand final and Kevy pushes Payne and Carrigan for massive minutes. They played huge amount of minutes. By the end of the game, they were gone. they back their blokes on the bench to do their jobs at either side of half time, and they get the benefits of that at the back end of the game.
Yeah. He actually, last year in the grand final, didn't he, Ivan? He brought one of them back a little bit earlier than he usually. I think Leota came back, and he came back for 2 stints. But like he generally goes, he sticks solid to 20 and 60, or 25 and 60. And then that middle part is for the bench guys to try and help out. Melbourne, how are they feeling about this matchup?
I
Ready?
think they'll be feeling better feel better if Nelson gets off, because he's been really. It's fun. He's had a funny year, Nelson. Earlier in the year, he was talking to Benji Marshall about moving to the West Tigers, and he was on the outer at the Storm for a while. He'd sort of lost the support of Craig Bellamy, and there was talk they'd let him go, but he sat down for a bit of a heart-to-heart with Matt Tripp about 2 months ago, and they thrashed it out, and his form sort of turned around since then. He's got himself in better shape, and he's had a real impact in the latter stage of the year, and he's a hard bloke to replace because they don't have a lot of blokes like him. I mean, the question mark over them has always been the middle of the field, and he's so important for them. So I think they'll feel better if Nelson gets off, but they're just playing with great confidence at the moment. So you just spot on, JD, I think it was you saying earlier, the speed they played at. I mean, they played a different speed to just about everyone else at the moment. You know, Harry Darton at a dummy half, and Pappenhausen's lightning, and Jerome Hughes and Cam Munster's just running the ball every chance he's got in the last month or so. And, you know, I think they'll go in really confident. I think it's like a grand final for the ages when you think about it. It's going to be one of the epic. I think it feels like it's going to be one of the epic grand finals, because you've got these two teams that are just at the peak of their powers. That's what it feels like.
Both teams as well will feel if we play our best, we win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there's no, we need the opposition to fall over. It's like, no, if we play our best, we get the win.
Who's the underdog?
Oh, I think Melbourne are.
Yeah.
If Nelson doesn't play, I think they definitely are. If not, I think you can't split them if Nelson plays. But I think if Nelson doesn't, it tips to Panthers' favour. But it's so interesting, isn't it? Because this dynasty started with a loss to Melbourne and potentially could finish with a loss to Melbourne. I mean, who would have thought? And in that 3 years, Melbourne have built themselves back up to come back and have another crack at them. And I think it would be one of Craig's greatest achievements if he's able to pull this off, and losing Cameron Smith, arguably the greatest player coach on the field anyone's ever seen, and will be an immortal, no doubt about that. Easily the best player I've ever witnessed. And I'll know from coaching against him, watch him break down the things that you implement to get the best of him. And as a game wears on, he figures it out and changes. You know, it's just remarkable. But to do it and rebuild that spine, and then not only that, watch King and Liero, Kamikamitha, all those guys now, they're all in their 50, 60 games in the NRL. They're primed to go after this Penrith pack. So, wow, it's going to be an exciting game.
As we sit here right now, Graham Annesley, has he done his weekly chat?
No, not yet. No, not yet.
What are we expecting in terms of appointments, in terms of changes from last week, interpretations on certain interpretations?
Well, I mean, obviously, Ivan blew up about the obstruction.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Graham will clarify that, and probably, I imagine, concede that maybe they got it wrong. There obviously was the other error with the Alex McDonald. Knock on. That probably shouldn't have been a try.
What about the put down on the Cronulla try?
Yeah, well, that looked like no try to me as well. So they made a few blues. I imagine Ashley Klein will probably get the grand final, I think. Who's the other option? I can't remember who had the other game. Grant Atkins, was it?
Do you think Rudolph should have been sin bin?
For the trip?
Yeah, well, he's been charged with, I think he got 1 to 2
Well, there was
matches,
two sin
didn't he?
bins. There was the trip and the late hit on Luai. For me, is worse.
Yeah.
But the trip has been, I spoke about this.
We've
before
seen
we
those
came
sin
in.
bin before, right?
Yeah.
Herbie Farnworth playing against the Broncos last year, sin bin for tripping over Campbell Graham, and nowhere near as bad. So
Did Appy get sin bin for one this year?
Yep.
Maybe
I think
Papa
he did.
Leahy
Yep, I
as
think he
well.
did, yep. I think if it was a Tigers player, he definitely got sin bin. But
Yeah.
I think the late hit one was the one that surprised me more than anything, because they had a massive push on Outlaw and that out of the game, and you don't see it as late as that anymore. It's very rare to see a guy get hit that late off the ball. I automatically went, well, he's gone. He's gone. And barely brushed over it. And
The
played
trip
on.
was a blatant trip too. I mean,
Anyway.
it used to be a send-off in the old days.
Well, Talakai hit him, doesn't get sin bin, and then does the obstruction, and gets that in his favour as well. He must be good mates.
Do you think no try that the obstruction? What do you think?
It's a try every day of the week.
Try. Yep. Okay.
But on the interpretation this year the inconsistent interpretation, I think that's what Ivan Clear is getting at. It's just pick your side and maybe you'll come up with the right card.
This is my WTF, so I may as well get at it now. But it's again, while I've been saying it all year, why there has to be a bunker man.
Bunker man.
Bunker man's back.
I'm serious.
Yes.
Everyone keeps laughing. The bunker man stops this from happening.
They've already knocked it on the head. We have put it to the NRL. It is out there. And I think you got named in the question to said official.
Or
I think Graham Annesley talked about it. He said, no, we're not having the same bloke in there the whole time.
How can this interpretation be right? There's no way that it's right.
Do you know what was I was screaming about is the fact that unless they get a different split or whatever, but he made the decision so quick, they never look at the ones that they get horribly wrong is that the ones that they don't look at the head on. They don't look down to see where shoulders are pointed, feet are pointed, decisions made. You only look at it side on. You don't get depth perception. If you look at it front on, there is no way in the world he's made the correct decision and he hasn't initiated contact there.
As the ball is passed, he's got plenty of room to move out to where the ball is. Yeah. He makes the decision to initiate contact. He hits him with his left pec and his left shoulder. It is ridiculous that was disallowed. And then they go up the other end and they concede a dubious try as well. But that's what I love about Penrith. Like, they never looked flustered at all. They never thought, wow, they're against us here, or this is not our day, or this is not fair. They just roll into their next play, get onto their job, and before you know it, it's 26-6.
Even the language that they used, he's hit the outside shoulder. It's like, no, it wasn't. No, he hasn't.
It's front on. It was front on, wasn't it? If anything.
I'm looking forward to Graham's.
Have you got worries this weekend about something along those lines? Like Ivan Cleary kind of said it gives him
anxiety, but it could go either way, couldn't it? We really hope we're not sat here this time next week discussing the referee or the bunker.
We talk about this most years, whether a referee's going to decide a grand final. Never happens. The players
are scared to do it.
The players always decide the grand final.
Ben Cummins.
No, I agree.
When was that again?
Canberra.
Roosters.
Never happens, eh?
Yeah. Do you think that decided
Every no gets you closer to it,
grand final?
I reckon Travis Toomer decided a grand final.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, maybe it's happened once in 108 years. Well, how long have we been going? 116 years or whatever we've been going.
Well, JD brought it up. Let's get into it.
Now, the WTF moment.
Did you get it all out? Like, by the way,
I did get it out, but I'd love to see Graham Annesley come out and just own it. It's wrong.
He might. He's owned a few this year.
We're chatting before he's talked, so he may well.
So the best coach in the game has said that how is that right?
Yeah.
Best coach in the game?
Who else is there at the moment?
3 straight premierships, Read.
Craig Bellamy goes all right.
He's made his first grand final in 4 years.
They're 3-3.
It's his first GF in 4 years.
They're 3-3 for legit titles.
Legit titles.
Well, no, but it is.
He's only done it for 22 years. No worries.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm in awe of Craig Bellamy as well. And one of them two should
You're
get
saying
coach.
Ivan's gone past Craig. That'll do me.
On form and
right
present right now over the last 3 or 4 years, he is the most dominant coach in the game, and anyone who argues that is absolutely having a lend of himself.
Well, I'm having a lend of myself.
How can
I'm
you?
having a lend of myself.
Fifth grand final in a row.
I'm talking over 20 years.
Prelims?
Can I tell you my WTF
just said right
moment?
now.
Yeah. I didn't. I looked at Craig Bellamy's stats today.
Yeah.
Mate, he's coached for 22 years, right?
Yeah.
He's made 10 grand finals, and he makes a grand final every 2 years.
Phenomenal.
That is insane.
It is good.
It's insane.
But Penrith have stopped him making the last 3.
Yeah, and you know what's even more insane? Winning 3 in a row.
You know what? He's won 70% of his games.
Yeah.
70% of his games as a coach.
Phenomenal.
Ridiculous. He's 22 years of coaching. He's made the finals 21 times. The one year he didn't make it was the salary cap year. And you're going to tell me that Ivan's gone past him. I give up. You're having a lend to me.
What? So how far back are we going? Ivan wasn't even
going
coaching.
22 years.
Even coaching then.
It was pretty
He's
close.
still playing.
He's been going 18 years, Ivan.
Hey, I'm not gonna
18-year coach.
pick battles about whether
Is that what I'm looking at? 18 seasons, yeah.
Craig Bellamy is a phenomenal coach. There's no doubt about that.
Tell you what I'd like to know.
One of them better get coach of the year.
Mind you, I'll
That's
tell
all
you
I'm
what.
saying.
You look at his, he's got a pretty good record too, Ivan, to be fair.
Yeah.
It's not as good as Craig's.
I'd love to know Ivan's record since I remember it clearly. 360 put a graphic up just before the grand final, the first grand final
Brian
they
Smith
won.
graphic. That was my story.
That was your
Yeah,
idea.
yes.
It said Ivan, if he doesn't win this, he's going to go down as one of the great non-achievers of rugby league. He's barely lost the game.
I inspired the dynasty.
Well done. Well
Oh,
done.
didn't you at the weekend declare Craig the greatest coach there's been?
I agree with you. Let's just
Yes,
be
and
clear
Ivan's
here.
gone past him.
The current most informed coach in the game over the last 3 or 4 years, recent times, is only one person.
Yeah.
Is there
You're
not?
both right.
But the other guy, Craig Bellamy, is the GOAT of coaching. I think he is, by far, the last 20 years, he's heads and shoulders above everyone else.
That was your WTF? That was yours? I think you made yourselves into the WTF head-to-head. James Graham, what's your WTF of the weekend?
Yeah, my WTF is on behalf of producer Charlie White. So, the playoff game was down in Melbourne, so Triple M Zone. Aaron Woods, Wade Graham, Charlie White, gone down there. There was a big event on the Saturday.
You're allowed to mention it. It's not a
It's the
not a
AFL
swear
Grand
word.
Final. Wade Graham's promised primo tickets to Aaron Woods, Charlie White, and himself, of course. Last minute disaster. Couldn't get the tickets. Charlie goes into emergency mode. Managed to pull a few strings, got media passes, but to say Woodsy and Charlie White were filthy with Wade is an understatement. And I've got to agree with them. I think that is poor form to promise AFL Grand Final tickets in a suite, all fully catered for, and then to just have media passes to be roaming around. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow. That's you go in with the story here, and if you want to bag him, bag him.
Yeah, Wade's an idiot, I've got to admit. He promised us everything and then gave us nothing in the end, sadly.
Is he going to
Promises the world
deliver
gave
a
you
makeup
nutless.
present?
No, he wasn't in the mood to apologise on Saturday as well when we sort of got at him for it. He'd had a few beers on Friday and he was still probably having beers all day Saturday as well. So he didn't seem to understand the errors of his way.
He had some swagger on Friday with his how proud he was that he'd arranged his tickets to
Yeah.
his.
Well, he didn't even tell us until Saturday. He's like, oh, with the tickets, we'll just sort of have to figure it out when we get to this function. And I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, my God.
Red flag.
Oh,
Wow.
Wade Graham.
You've let yourself down, Wade.
My WTF is pretty much what my wife said to me on Saturday morning when I left home at 7 o'clock. And she said, oh, what are we doing today? And I said, we? And she gave the look of WTF because it went a 5-hour golf round into AFL Grand Final, into Bledisloe, into Cronulla, Penrith, into Manchester City and Newcastle.
Oh, what about that? Good game.
So, it's a great day.
What a day.
Where'd you play? Longreef? Or
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Quite all right.
Nice
Got on
wide
the club
fairways
chance.
there.
Yeah,
You spray it a bit. How good is it?
My WTF, in all seriousness, was the performance of the Sydney Swans.
Oh, wow.
For that skill level to rock up on Grand Final day, how do you come to terms with that in a sporting sense of going out there and it's happened again, 2 in 3 years?
I was watching the game. I don't watch it a lot. And I'm watching the game. I don't know all the players intimately, but my mate loves it. He's a big Swan supporter. And I'm saying to him, mate, who's this bloke and who's this bloke? Are they normally good players? Like,
Yeah.
have a go. Like, they look like they're just not competing as hard as – it looked like Brisbane had more players.
Mm.
But, wow, what a performance from them, to be fair.
Yes, outstanding. Anyway, this Sunday will be better in terms of a contest. We hope. We hope.
You all right, mate?
Roosters. So you've tied up over there.
Jimmy's
Just having a stretch.
Having a stretch.
In the wrestling
right.
training?
What's the...
Off the turnbuckle.
Oh. Have you watched McMahon?
No, I've heard about it,
Oh,
though.
it's good. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Have
looking
you watched
forward
it?
to
Is it
The Vince McMahon series?
is it
on
a doco
Netflix?
or is it a?
It's a doco. So they interviewed a whole lot of people, including him, before
Okay, so he's got saying it.
the drama. No, well,
Oh,
before the drama happened a couple of years ago, they did all these interviews, 100 and something interviews,
yeah.
and it's a 5-part series. I think I've watched 4. I've got 1 episode to go, but he's in it. I'll tell you what he needs to do. Actually, that should be my WTF moment. That bloke needs to stop getting plastic surgery. He looks awful. What's doing? Why do these people spend all this money trying to make themselves look younger, and at the end of it, they look horrific? Look, his face looks. I don't know what he's done to it.
I don't know.
But it's honestly, it's
I say
terrible.
it all the time. Like, what mirror are they looking into?
I know.
Are you
Just
looking at
grow
that
old
going, geez, that
gracefully.
looks good?
He looks horrific,
The big
Yeah.
lips.
and he's just. I mean, honestly, it's
So
very.
you
It's very good.
you
I
don't
love
try,
wrestling.
you don't try and make yourself look younger.
Well, I wouldn't get plastic surgery.
You come in your fancy non-iron shirt.
that looks like it needs an iron.
This one
Just
hasn't
grow
really
out
worked.
gracefully. Like put on a pair of slacks and a jumper and...
Did they get your face done? Why bother? Just grow old and embrace it. It's my belief.
It's too much money. You got to spend your money on something, I reckon. That's what
and
it is.
and generally, it doesn't look. It generally doesn't look better. Like he is the prime example of a guy who spent too much money on his face.
Of all the things I thought we'd be talking about Vince McMahon
Just stop
about,
spending money on your face, Vince.
Yeah.
Enjoy life.
Turkish Tourism Board would probably disagree at the moment.
Is it cheap at Lodge? He went over there for his hair.
I don't
It's
think
all
Vince
the rage.
McMahon is going for the budget is like, oh, they do it in America. Or they go to Turkey. You know what?
Is it just on the doco though?
Yeah.
So has it got at him for all the stuff that's come out, or is it actually a puff piece?
It's puffish,
Puffish,
but they do bring it up. They talk about it, and they ask him about some of the.
not Puff Daddy,
They
puffish.
talk to him about some of the.
I was the
No.
other
Not that.
meaning of the word.
No.
Yeah, they talked to him about some of the stuff, but it's interesting. If you like wrestling, Jimmy's now a wrestler, so he should probably watch it.
I will do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you should watch it. Yeah,
Roosters.
All the big stars are on this: Stone Cold and The Rock and Hulk Hogan, and it's fantastic.
Roosters. The common phrase that's been used at the moment is premiership window closed. So you just have a look at their ins and outs for next year, and their outs heavily outweigh the ins. I think there's just one in. All the rest are like, oh, okay, where'd they go from here? But Trent Robinson has said for a long time that he was looking at ways to try and upgrade the guys that they've got coming through their system. Is that going to be enough to keep them not only in touch with the top four, but entrenched in the top four and maybe take steps forward next season? Everyone's assuming that they're going to go way backwards.
I don't think they'll go way backwards. I mean, the issue for them is I think the bigger issue for them is having no Brandon and no Sam Walker till maybe June, July. I think that's a huge issue for them because they've got a lot of kids at that club that they want to bring through. I think there's a view that maybe some of the guys, become a bit comfortable and maybe not as hungry as they should be. And they've got kids like Blake Steep, Robert Toyer, young centre who's had heaps of injuries in recent years. Mark Nwanga-Nituazi will play next year. So, I don't think the Roosters ever rebuild. I've been using this Jason Riles philosophy. It's not a rebuild, it's a reset.
Oh, okay.
So I think this is a reset, right? But I don't think it's a rebuild. The issue, as I said, the issue is they're going to be without those Brandon and Sam Walker for so long at the start of next year, and I think that's the big problem.
Huge,
for them.
because that affects their whole preseason. Those guys won't be training with the team, so you struggle to get those combinations with your more experienced players. Yeah, I said that when they both went down. That's a big blow for them in 2025, as much as it is for the finals this year, especially with the players leaving. But yeah, it's experience though, isn't it? It's it's the experience that you lose, and they might start well, but then you got to go 27 rounds.
Yeah.
And that's where experience gets you.
You're still going to have James Tedesco, Daniel Tupou, Lindsay Collins, Angus Crichton, Victor Radley. So they've still got blokes who know, you know what I mean? They've still got blokes and senior figures, leaders there who know what it takes.
Yeah, it's probably on some of the people to come out of the shadows of those giants that have left. Like, you'd hope Billy Smith can have a good run, injury-free. I've really liked what he's done. When you look at their forwards, you've got Collins, May, Lenu, White. That's four
Radley.
really good your four starting front rowers. That's most teams would be saying, I'll take that.
Yep.
And then the development of Sanders Smith, Roosters have big raps on him, but with a lot of the players leaving and with the way the salary cap works, I just can't see the Roosters being inactive in the market. I don't think their recruitment for season 2025 is done, and I know
they keep saying they're not going. They're not doing anything, Jimmy. They keep saying that. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Townsend coming in too will help offset the loss of Walker to start the season. That'll be a big plus for him having his experience. So,
I think they don't really have a lot of salary cap room until 26.
Okay,
they've
it's all tied up
got
with
blokes
everything.
coming off. Like Brandon's off. Sammy Walker still hasn't re-signed. So they've got guys coming off at the end of 25. Teddy's end of 25. Yeah. They'll probably re-sign some of those guys. But
if you look at it moving ahead for next season, because this season is done for the Roosters, well, they obviously lose all those players. Compare them to a Melbourne Storm that add Stefano Utoya Kamanu. Like, Melbourne look like they're going to be the team to beat next year. Penrith had Papali'i. Fisher Harris, they had Blaze Talangi for Jerome Luai. Taruva's replacement, maybe a McLean, maybe. So
they rate him so highly.
They've got the Panthers will still be there or thereabouts with those people coming in. Melbourne improve, Dogs will improve. I imagine Broncos will be back in the mix.
Get to them in a sec.
Manly if Tommy's fit.
Where the Roosters probably on paper with those losses, they're going to have a fight on their hands. But with their resources and with their coach and with some of those players and with some of those players that probably haven't reached their potential yet, I don't think it's completely closed now.
Cronulla, Adam Fanua-Blake, kind of forgotten about the fact that he's going to Cronulla. They lose a couple around the fringes, but did you watch that on Saturday night and think, okay, how do they get past that team and then get past whoever they would play in a grand final? And is Adam Fanua-Blake the game changer there? Is just that ping through the middle that a guy like Nicho Hynes needs in a big game, for instance?
What?
I think the difference for them is more technical than play. I think Aden will come in and add a lot to their pack in terms of go forward and second phase and all that sort of stuff. But if you watch a game on the weekend, they just lay up too many times. They're just three plays here. They had 3 or 4 sets on the Panthers line, and I think they had one crack at them. Other than that, it was just lay play here, lay play there, and they just need to add that. They've got the talent to do it, but just play more opportunities, have more strike. And I think them missing out Nicho Hynes for large parts, having inconsistencies in their spine probably affected that a little bit. But if I'm looking back at that game, I feel like there's opportunities where they needed to pull the trigger and go after points, but they were almost happy to play the Penrith game, and you're not going to win doing that.
Yeah, and they made some mistakes you can't afford to make against Penrith Panthers early in the piece, which you need to be on for the Sharks when they're going to play the bigger teams, the bigger name teams. They need to be almost perfect. I think with Fanua-Blake coming in, what he'll do is he'll change that layup into either a really quick play the ball or a try scoring opportunity himself. He's proved and shown he can do that. For a number of years there at the Warriors. So look, they certainly do improve. I thought Nicho, he was actually having a crack. He was having a dig. Not his best game, but he showed a willingness and a want to get the ball in his hands and try something. Probably not the conditions to try some of those things that he was, but for me it was really optimistic for the Sharks' point of view that Nicho's went completely into his shell, and he looked more involved than he was the previous week where Trindle took over. We know Hynes can do it. He's done it before. He just needs that little bit of confidence in a big preseason.
Brisbane, guys. So, Reedy, they tried the old one in journalism talk that they tried to put the bins out on Friday, Brisbane, with the news that Kevy was gone. Didn't quite work with they thought that maybe up there that all the attention on the AFL Grand Final and then the 2 games of footy on the weekend. But when's a good time to sack a coach? Probably never, unfortunately for Kevy. But what's the latest out there? Is it like, are we talking Michael Maguire Winks odds to get this job?
It'll be announced in the next 24 to 48 hours.
What's the go with New South Wales?
He's got a release from New South Wales, and the Broncos will just finalise it all, and it's basically a done deal. It's basically.
Was there any crossover here? Did they sound him out before Kevy went?
I don't know. You'd like to think not, but I can't say. I don't know. What do you reckon?
Cough if you think they did.
It happened quickly though, didn't it?
Oh yeah,
they sorted it out pretty quickly. I don't know.
Anyway. The fact is,
yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it.
No, I don't. I don't know definitively. I just know what most people have seen.
Give us an educated guess.
Well, I'd prefer to stay out of it. Give News
Why?
Corp. Well, I'm employed by News Corp and they own the Broncos, so I'd prefer to not comment on that, Jimmy.
In saying that, though, I reckon it's better than what they did last time. Did this Mickey Mouse interview process when Seibold got the job, when everyone knew Siebes was getting the job. Myself, Michael Maguire, Kevy, all went to this ridiculous interview process, which everybody knew who was getting the job in the game, but they tried to put on this. No, I think this way, at least they say, no, he's our man. We've identified him. We've gone after him, and everyone moves on instead of making people come in and pretend that there's an opportunity when there's not. So I reckon it's Yeah, whether they did or they didn't, it'll come out, that's for sure. But, it's at least they've identified who they want and they're going after it.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's the logical guy, right? Once they made the decision to move on from Kev, I think Madge is the logical guy to take over just because of the success he's had in recent years with New Zealand and New South Wales. You can look back at his time with the Tigers. That always felt like the wrong fit, I think, from basically almost the start. It just didn't feel right. But there's something about this, I reckon, that feels right, that this team's...
Really?
Well, yeah, because I think this team's ready to win. I think Madge is a guy that is very good at with teams that are ready to win. I think and I think you look at this roster, I think it's ready. It's ready to contend for a premiership. And I think Madge, if Madge goes in there for 3 or 4 years and helps with a successor at some point, I think that for me is the way you do it. That's what I think they should be trying to do. Put Madge in there for 3 or 4 years, enjoy some success, and have him bring along Benny Teo maybe. Ben's obviously an assistant there. Maybe Ben takes over after 3 or 4 years.
Well, why are we talking about who takes over?
I don't know.
That's my WTF. I can tell you now, Michael Maguire is not going there to get somebody ready to take over.
You're
That
asking
is
my views. I'm just giving you how I think it should work, JT.
I agree with what
JD.
you're saying in terms of the right fit because the squad is there, and that's similar to what happened when he took over at South. They had the Burgess and Inglis and those guys are at the club, so he's got the names there ready to pull them together as he's done in rep footy.
Yep.
So I 100% tell you what, there is no way Madge is going there to help someone take his job when he's finished.
Why were you so dismissive when I said I think he's a good fit for it?
Well, because of the magnitude of the job and Michael Maguire's style with that group, and also the fact that just because you're the best candidate for the job on paper doesn't mean that it's the right fit. Is he the best candidate? You could make a strong case that he is, but then there's a connection piece with the club where clearly he's had a number of issues. Obviously, he's coached New South Wales to beat Queensland. Yeah, obviously, most Broncos fans, members, people are big fans of Queensland. Wouldn't have liked him because of that. Big support still for Kevy and the treatment or the perceived treatment of Kevy, and then obviously
but that wouldn't matter who you got. That wouldn't matter who you got. That's
well, you make a point, but still, that's going to weigh against him. And then he's had his run-ins with media people that have been
Gordy.
Well, yeah. Yeah, like that's a big part of coaching is getting it right with the media.
Yeah, but you know what? One of the things he did really well with New South Wales, Jimmy, was he got the old boys really involved from day one because he knew they'd been critical of the New South Wales team over the past decade. So what he did, one of the first things he did was he involved them all in with the Blues, right? With the Blues set up. And I guarantee you he'll do the same thing in Brisbane. He'll go straight to Gordy, Chris Johns, all those guys, and he'll try and Steve Renoff and Alfie, and there's talk about Alfie potentially walking away at the moment, which I would hate to see because Alfie's been a part of the furniture there for so long. And people tell me he's amazing around that playing group and the way he talks to them and the way he can straddle that line between. You'd know this better than me, JD.
Yeah.
Apparently, well, you were talking about it on the weekend. Sorry, it was you said it to me actually on the weekend that he's amazing in the way he straddles being part of the coaching staff and part of the group as well.
Yeah.
So I'd hate to see that happen. But one of the things I think Madge will do straight away is he'll get those blokes and he'll get them involved in the team and involved in the club, and he'll make sure they're on side from day one.
That's why it's so important now, and it's already bits have come out. That's so important for whoever it is, if it's Michael who goes in there, that whatever's gone on in the review, whatever has happened to make that decision, just keep it indoors. It doesn't need to come out. Doesn't need to come out who was speaking to who, and was it before this or before? Let's leave it alone now. Don't say anything. Leave it. Let it go.
It won't.
It won't.
It does.
It won't. That's the problem. That's what's going to make. Even if it comes out that this has happened, that's happened. That's going to affect Madge's ability to engage with the old boys initially. Initially, it may do. So if it comes out more and more that Kevy was undermined or there were things going on that Kevy didn't know about, then that makes it hard for the new coach, regardless of who it is. So I hope whoever gets it is given the opportunity to just start. The players clearly want change. That's what's come out of the review. The players have opted to have change. And that, for any coach going in, that means you're going to get eyes and ears straight away.
Does it feel like a job that needed to go to someone with a big personality? And Michael Maguire, that big personality really came out this year. He's obviously won that premiership in 2014. Interestingly enough, I just had a look at his stats. The last 6 years of club footy, he's had a losing record, under 50% win ratio. So that's a factor as well. But did it feel like, because it's the Broncos and they've got the old boys and it's one team town, okay, Dolphins are there as well, always been the glamour club, that it needed this known factor coming in, other than, aside from Josh Hannay, who was well in contention, we heard, for the Parramatta job, but didn't get it in the end. Or even if Jason Riles was still available, not up for him because he's only been the assistant, hasn't been the main man, can't control all those outside factors, or hasn't had experience controlling those outside factors. What do you reckon, James?
Yeah, look, obviously it's arguably one of the biggest, or the biggest job in the NRL. So, what type of coach does it need? Does it need an experienced coach? Like, a lot of them are already taken. Like, they really are. So, look, probably doesn't need it. Probably needs someone that's got some runs on the board, that's got experience. Like, I think that's a big tick. Like the guy sitting next to us, JD, who's been a part of a big club in Sydney and knows what that's like. Been a part of, the Broncos as well. Like, it's difficult to know exactly what the right recipe is for any job. With the Broncos, it's way more complex than any other role in the NRL, I would say.
Before we go, because James has got to be somewhere, let's go to the mailman. Seamless.
Ready's mail.
Here we go with his
A little
fountain
bit
pen
of South news,
scribbling
actually.
away.
South announced Isaiah Tass today. JD kept until the end of 27. You had a bit to do with him.
Yeah, brought him to the
thoughts on
club,
him?
train and trial, and forced his way into the side. And it's great news for Tassie. He's
Train and trial.
he came down on train and trial and worked his way into a development contract, and then obviously he's kicked on and played some great footy for us. And they missed him this year when he broke his leg. He was a big loss for him, and he gives them more depth as well in the outside backs and some experience. And they're going to have some real competition for places in the centres, because you've got Campbell Graham coming back to full fitness, Jack White and Tass, then you got Munro, Alex Johnson, some real depth now, and it's good for Tassie. It's well earned.
It's a bit of news out the Tigers today as well. Brett Hodgson looks like he will be back on the coaching staff next year. They conducted interviews, did a process.
Is this Robbie Farah's
This
role?
is the Robbie Farah replacement.
Yeah.
And Brett Hodgson was down to the final two, and it looks like he's got the job. So obviously a grand final winning teammate of Benji's. Benji trusts him. He's got a relationship with him. And Brett,
He's working with Eddie.
he was working with Eddie
Jones? Yeah.
with England and the Wallabies. So when Eddie finished up at the Wallabies, Brett finished up as well. He's been coached in Super League with Hull, and
Been all over, yeah.
he's been a bit
long
everywhere.
apprenticeship, yeah.
Yeah.
Great fella too, Joe.
By the way, back to Brisbane.
Yeah.
What the go with their assistants who just got the job and now
Well,
now what?
Madge knows Benny Teo, obviously. He was part of his premiership winning team.
Oh, that's right. You
so-
got him as the job in 4 years' time.
Yeah,
Benny Teo.
their successor. Yeah,
Next
so he
Broncos
knows
head
him.
coach.
He knows him well.
Yep.
I don't know what his relationship's like with Trent. I don't know whether he'd know. He'd obviously coached against him, so he would know him. But I don't know whether they're.
Probably make an announcement within the next week or so.
What's that?
On the assistants, they'll probably
They've already announced them. What do you?
no, but they'll clarify that within a week.
His favourite thing when he does your
Yes,
mail
yeah.
segment.
I've got one of them for you.
Have you?
Yeah. So the Tigers, Kobe Hetherington, they've been talking to him. Actually, this is a decision that Michael Maguire will have to rubber stamp, but they've been talking to Kobe Hetherington for the Broncos back row for a little while. And it looks like they'll probably make Kobe Hetherington an offer.
Because he's been told he can
He's
look around.
been told he's free.
Yeah.
Well, he was told by, obviously,
Kevy.
when Kevy was coached, he was free to look around, but the coaching situation's changed now. But I can't imagine they'll back down on that. But so, the Tigers, I expect to make him an offer in the next week. And Kobe will have a decision to make.
He
And
will.
I imagine potentially he might join the Tigers potentially next year. So it'd be a handy signing for them, I think. We've spoken about him before.
It would be a very handy signing. Just quickly, you've got some mail just come in. New South Wales coach, they're looking between going back to the future with Laurie Daly or Freddie Fittler, or someone new on the scene like maybe McInnes. Boyd Corden has been mentioned.
Yeah, I think Boyd Corden.
Matt King.
Matt King's in the frame, but expecting
Boyd Corden.
Really?
James Mary McGregor, strong candidate, but expecting an announcement maybe sometime over the off season.
JD, would you dead set go Boyd Cordner?
He's been there for a few years. He's been assistant role. He's
There you go.
a legend. And apparently he's a great communicator. I don't know him, so it's not me just pushing him. It's just I just feel like him, McInnes. But yeah, I think Boyd, if he wants it, I don't know. We'll wait and see. Trent Barrett maybe.
And just quickly, we talked about the Roosters before with Joey Suaalii. You mentioned Joey Suaalii. Look, obviously, there's been a bit of talk. He'll go on the spring tour with Rugby Australia. He'll need a release from the Roosters to do that because he's contracted till the end of October. But I think there's a bit of goodwill there between the Roosters and Rugby Australia over the Mark Nwingi Tuazi deal, where they let him out of his deal early to come and join them so he could start early with them. And Joe will get a similar release from the Roosters, and he'll be on that spring tour with, is it Joe Schmidt? Who's the Wallabies coach?
That's him.
Joey Schmidt and those guys will head over there for a bit of a...
Forgot about Marky Mark.
Yeah.
And
Nwangani Tuase.
Yeah, he was good. He was good in the little flashes we saw of him.
Like you rugby league journo, like you got your freaking nose in the trough the whole time. You don't look up and look at the world. This guy was always going to be good. Don't be surprised.
Didn't he get dropped from the Wallabies?
He's outstanding. He will be one of the best players in the outside backs in the rugby league world next season.
Oh, turn it up. That's a big call.
He is a very, very, very good footballer, Brent Read.
Anyway, Joey will get that release from the Roosters and he'll head over on that spring tour and life will go on.
Life will go on. Who wins the grand final?
I think Melbourne will.
Oh, there you go. It's a shock.
Partially speaking.
Yeah, coached by the greatest coach in the history of sport.
You making more notes? What do you got?
What do you got?
No, this is for something I've got on after.
What you got, Jimmy? Who wins?
Penrith.
JD?
Oh, yeah.
Don't sit there. Just pick one.
I'm going to say Melbourne extra time.
Okay.
Ooh, what do you got?
Penrith.
Okay, split 2-2. Charlie, you're the deciding vote.
Yeah. Just make sure you get a ticket to the game, all right?
Yeah. Don't take Wade's word for it.
Exactly. Hey, take his accreditation away. Let him watch the game outside. Have a great grand final week, everyone. That was the Monday Scrum.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, guys.